Hey, y'all, and welcome back to another Catch That Artist Spotlight where we talk to folks who got new stuff coming out and we just want to find out their influences and if there's like songs or eras or something that kind of inspired their art. And today, and I'm naturally Elise, and that's my brother.
JR.
Doesn't even matter.
You know,
No.
yes. And if you're here, you know we are the R&B representatives. And today we are welcoming back a guest, but in a different capacity today. Instead of talking about somebody else's record, we're gonna talk about his record. And that is the good brother, Nicolay. What's up?
What's going on, fam? What's happening? Thank you for having me again.
Of
Yeah.
course.
I'm very honored and flattered and humbled that I was asked back so soon. It must have been a good episode.
It
Right.
was. It was. Like we had a
It
ball.
was a good episode. It was a good topic. It was a good topic.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm.
So I'm gonna uh turn over duties to JR.
Oh, it turned over to me.
Make
Okay.
him do something.
So, like y'all know, Nicolay has been on the show. We talked about, damn, what did we talk about, y'all? Damn.
Mothership connection.
Mothership connection.
Man, it
Yes.
didn't
From
really impress
Parliament.
him at
Yes.
all.
Yeah.
You making me look like a lie, bruh.
Already
I'm
forgot all
sorry. I'm
about it.
sorry. So y'all already know what kind of show this is gonna be for real, for real. Like Elise said, we're gonna talk about Nicolay's new joint, which we're gonna get into. But we talked to him and we was asking him kind of what he was influenced by this record. And he said UK Soul. So we was like, yo, we could talk about that a little bit, and then we'll get into his new record, which is dope. I can't wait to get talk about this record because fire. But so Nicolay, you say you was influenced by the UK Soul for your new record, No More Waiting. So when was the first time you actually heard like that UK Soul that really started to influence you?
I mean, I would have heard it at the time. I grew up overseas. I lived in Europe until I was guys 25 or something like that. I lived in Europe until it was oh 05, oh 06. And so I have a distinct memory of stuff like that coming up. I'm talking about very early Seal. Crazy by Seal was one that really, really kind of blew the doors wide open, because it was a song that had a lot of musical appeal to it. Like obviously his voice was incredible and the production was really great, but it also was a song that really sort of connected with the times, with how the world was feeling. It just was a very sort of, it was one of those rare songs where you kind of really meet the moment of the time.
Yeah.
So that was one that really impacted me. Another one was the early Soul to Soul stuff. The stuff that came out again in the late the 80s and the early. That was another sort of sound that I was really, really drawn to at the time because it was combining, I think, a lot of soulful stuff with more kind of sort of street-minded beats, but in a UK way. So there was always that, and I think with Seal it hit me the same way. It's not necessarily the same as American music. It has a distinct sort of flavor
Right.
to it. Soul to Soul, definitely Massive Attack, Unfinished Sympathy, stuff like that. Like just a lot of those records that I think meant a lot to me back then and now sort of have come back. I think looking at it really after the fact when y'all were asking me about it, it seems like those kind of sounds have really influenced, I think, this current record for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm an old head, so I'm gonna take it back a little bit. When I got
Right.
into,
I didn't want to blow your
when,
spot up, but right, we were both there. Right.
right,
Right.
because of course, I got it from my family. This UK stuff, so we started to get it when it was Dusty Springfield. That's
Mm,
when she started. My mom introduced me to her. My mom loved her, and I just
mm,
remember her playing her as a kid. So I was just like, who is this? Like I knew, what I'm saying? She had like an
mhm.
accent to her. So I was like, who is this? And my mom was like, well, this is Dusty Springfield. She kind of started this British invasion,
Right.
really. You know what I'm saying? This British soul for real, for real. It was her. You know what I mean? Because I mean, the Beatles was there. Just
Right.
saying. They were there. But at the end of the day, she was like, it was her that had that soul. And then she started working with people like Jerry Rexler that was working with Aretha and what's his name? The one that worked with Shaka, at least. His name started with an A. Aretha Martin. Oh, gosh. Dang.
That
Dang,
sounds
what is
about
his
right.
name? Well, yeah, y'all know who I'm talking about. I can't pronounce his name. I suck with names, y'all. But clearly, y'all know that from Nicolay's episode as well. But, but, so it was like after that, then it got to like the foundation for me. Y'all know, Build Me Up, Buttercup, all that. That was that British show because they were a band. And then after that, I started getting into it more with Junior because y'all know he's from the UK, and this is
Mhm.
when Junior, and he's from the UK. So I got into that sound, and this is when disco was changing, and everybody's finding that experimental sound and all that. And then
Right.
we get into Loose Ends. That's when I really started paying attention to UK soul for me, and I
Mhm.
was just like, "Ooh, I like this. This is funky." You know what I'm saying? It was funky. It wasn't like new jack, but it was funky.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then with Jane, her voice is just woo. And then when Soul to Soul came out, that's when I was like, this is the feeling that I can connect to it because again, it had the break beats on there and all of this. And then Top 40 radio, and that's when I started to learn who Seal was. And I
Mhm.
heard
Mhm.
Crazy, and then The Beginning, which is off his debut album. The Beginning is so
Yep.
so like ill. I was like, oh, and a lot of people don't know Seal for having songs like that. Everybody
Right.
think of Crazy and Kiss from a Rose, and they think of all of that, not knowing his first album had some club knockers on there for real, for real.
Oh yeah.
You know what
Oh
I
yeah.
mean?
He's got deep cuts. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got a very deep discography. Um,
Yes.
and I just know like when he first came out, it was like, his voice was obviously very impactful, directly impactful, but it was also the song, the lyrics. Like he can write a song and he has something to say, and I think that sort of propelled him forward to just keep recording. But I think a lot of that music, what I
Mm,
really like about that lane, whether it's Soul to Soul, they took sort of a more traditional element, but it's always combined with something that's a little more edgy, So like even the stuff like For
yes.
Hero that, they kind of pioneered really sort of the drum and bass direction of it. They took, like
Yep.
traditional kind of soul elements like break beats, but also like string arrangements and stuff, like basically the Charles Stepney sort of sound, and took that further. And so I really have always really been into that because I think for myself I got a lot of that sort of directly from at the time the local MTV or stuff like that. Even like a Jamiroquai, which is like a little bit later, but like another sort of English group that were really kind of doing it at the moment. Of course, in the '80s you had a lot of the sort of glam bands that were relatively to very soulful, depending on where you like. I consider Duran Duran to be soulful. You know what I'm saying? Like I may
Oh yes.
sort of
Oh
stretch the
yes.
boundaries a little bit, but I consider them and like Spandau Ballet and like even Talk
Oh yeah.
Talk, Level 42. That whole stretch is like they were all soulful pop bands to whatever degree.
Mm-hmm.
And one reason that you could tell that they were soulful is those songs resonated with just everyday black folk over here because it was familiar.
Yeah.
It's like
Oh
you
yeah.
Yeah,
find
they
you
could write
go,
songs. They really, I think when you sort of have to boil down what that movement was, like they wrote incredible songs. If you listen to Duran Duran, like obviously they wrote incredible songs, and then that was paired with, especially once they started working with Nile Rodgers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But like a lot of those
Mm,
bands were looking towards the sort of soul tradition, even in terms of the songs they were writing. And so, like, even though they were scoring pop hits, they were scoring pop hits with deep songs, with songs that were really actually saying something. So you had like even Simply
mm-hmm.
Red and stuff like that. You just had people scoring massive, massive hits, but with something that was musically really, really solid and interesting. And I think I was really shaped by that period in time because you would turn the radio on and you would hear a great song, both in terms of writing, production, execution. That was the stuff that would make it up at that point. At least growing up, that's what I remember. You know, a lot of that stuff became huge. You know, and so it was a very for me a very forming experience was to realize that like these people were scoring massive hits, but they were doing it with real songs, with great works of art. You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I love about that, you know, the 80s British soul and then like the new wave stuff is they weren't afraid to let a beat just ride. Like if it's a nice little arrangement, like
Oh
you might
yes.
have 45 seconds or a minute where it's just, the music. And I always like that. And when newer stuff comes out, when they do that, you like kind of got me. Like I love that. When I find that in newer music, I'm like, yes, I'm in there.
And at
No,
least we
they
always
love the long versions too. Like Soul to Soul, like they got the 7, 8 minute version where it's just like like for a minute long, and
yeah.
everybody's fine with it because it was much more about setting a vibe and then building
Right.
on top of that. So the break beats, then it was the keyboards, then it's like the vocals are incredible. You know, like however do you want me, like nobody will hear that once. You'll hear it once and you'll remember it for the rest of your life. Like it's that kind of a powerful
Yes.
hook where you only need the one time,
Mm-hmm.
and they had like so many of those. But you could tell that was a love of music that was informing it. Like it was slick, it was
Mm-hmm.
smooth, it was commercial even, but it was
Yeah.
informed by a love of music and a love, I think, of the genres that came before them. So like I play a lot of that stuff, when I like to I I really like to listen to a lot of that stuff in my free time. At least it's pulling
And
out
then
the records right now. There it is.
yeah, you see her showing
There it
off.
is.
That's what she doing. She's
But
doing
that's
that.
yeah, there it is. Yeah, I mean, but that was really another. So it was also, of course, the heyday of vinyl. Like it was like 12 inches, like with
Yep.
great
Yes.
extended versions or remixes. Like it was a very exciting time to be into music because it was completely different. I mean, I realize this is going to be sort of old head excursion, but it was like the music you wanted to hear, you had to actually put effort towards, whether that was
Facts.
going to a record store or going to your people or going to a concert. So like what you loved, you were inclined to really put a lot of passion towards. So I remember like the stuff that I loved, like you would search it out. You would go high,
Mm-hmm.
you search high and low for that. And a lot of those 12 inches, some of which I still have to this day, were really kind of things that you were just seeking out that you knew at some point had dropped and you knew you just had to get it. And the only way was to go buy it, or to go
Right.
dub it from somebody who had bought it. So interesting and exciting time even to be a fan. It was kind of in right in the middle of that.
I just miss that. Like when we used to be able to just used to go to the record store. Now you got people that, you know what I'm saying? They don't even understand what we went to find what we wanted. I will never forget when my mom and dad came home with the 12 inch of Keep On Moving from Soul to Soul.
Mm.
I will never forget that. Like I remember because my mom loved that record. So I remember
It's
her
such a
telling
great
my
record.
right.
It's such an amazing record. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
It's an amazing
And I
production.
remember her going and was like, I want this record. And I remember they had to go to a couple of stores because this is the time when music was also changing as well. Like we were coming out of that new jack a little bit, coming into this thing that we're gonna call hip hop soul now. You know what I mean? So it was a shift. So that Keep On Moving, the way Jazzy B did that, it was like nobody was doing that like that. It was either you were New Jack or that's it. You know what I mean? It wasn't, or the DJs in New York was doing that, but a lot of them were going overseas, seeing like what they were doing. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, this is what's going on. You know what I mean? Because everybody was with, the this Ron G and Kid Capri was doing, the what is it? Something in the way you make me feel with the, impeach the president. So they were doing that. But if you listen to Keep On Moving, that's exactly what that was. You know what I'm saying? So again, the UK soul was making a big splash. You know what I'm saying? So it was like you had to be on it. And I hear so many people, like so many producers was like, we was on it. We were listening
Oh
to
yeah.
it.
Oh,
We were like,
absolutely.
whoa, something, this is a change. Something is happening. You know what I mean? Like Jimmy Jam, who was our
Yeah.
friend, and was like, he like was even listening to that as well.
Humble
Like he
brag.
like, oh, we can't be doing what we're doing with this anymore because the whole thing is changing because of Soul to Soul and my cousin Lisa Stansfield. That's my cousin, y'all, quote unquote. And like what she was doing with Been Around the World and You Can't Deny It and things like that. So it was just that UK Soul, they was playing no games during that time. So it was a good time to be alive to me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I would even expand the membership circle to include George Michael, honestly.
yes.
Like all day. I think a lot of, soul is obviously a bit of a vague term here, but like I would argue that George Michael was an incredibly soulful musician, who wrote and produced a lot of his
Yes.
own material. A lot of people don't know that, but like
Yes.
he wrote and produced, like he was in the studio like creating a lot of that stuff himself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I took a lot of production cues from a lot of what was happening, like definitely Jazzy B and Nelly Hooper, who were the guys behind Soul to Soul, because like again it sounded like nothing that sounded before. It was definitely a melting pot of influences, but I think they pulled it off in a way that it was impossible not to like. The songs were really great. The vocalists they got were just really, really incredible. The songs were dope. The messages were positive. Like it was really something that sort of felt like, even from that perspective, like wholesome almost. You know what I mean? It was like
Mm-hmm.
it was a very sort of positive vibe. I think you could compare it maybe to what De La Soul was doing here. It had a little bit of that organic feel, if you will. But yeah, man, like we were in that, and I think we were definitely influenced by it. Uh, same obviously as we were by a lot of what was happening in the States, but a lot of the stuff that happened in the UK, starting at the early age 80s and then going into the late 90s, again with stuff like Four Hero and Goldie and everything. It sort of and obviously UK house music, which I'm also a big fan of, like groups like Underworld. So yeah, this could be a long episode, because it's like this truly one of my passion points is like that type of music in that era by those people. Like, is it like definitely checks all of my boxes.
Mhm.
Mm.
It did just a little sidebar. One of the things that I loved about like Soul to Soul and Loose Ends is like they had these videos and they looked like they was having so much fun. And they was
Oh, they
dancing it,
did.
and it was just organic dance, one like choreographed, like they was just getting it, like they were jamming. And that's part of
Mm-hmm.
what stuck me into that visual of seeing them, and it just was confident, and it was beautiful. Yeah.
No, it really was. They
Especially
were built like, especially Soul to Soul, were building a community in a lot of ways, and I think they even there. I think on the first record, there's even a song that, in so many ways, is kind of their, I guess, manifesto, if you will, where it is all about sort of, it was about more than the music to them. It was about sort of building, community, building fellowship, and
yes,
increasing
yes.
opportunity for marginalized people. So it was very much a thing that transcended music. And I think because of that, probably became as attractive as it was, that it was kind of a homegrown sort of like, again, community almost. And later, I know we talked about Parliament Funkadelic and how that was sort of like really in like a group of like seemingly 500 people, but like all speaking the same language, like having their own sort of language, having their own sort of sub society, if you will. And I think a lot of the groups at that time were the same. Like Massive Attack was another group that was like that. That sort of, they were kind of more out of that Bristol scene where you had Portishead later and stuff like that. All incredible stuff, but it was another group that was kind of their own sort of scene. You know what I mean? Like self-contained, people coming up together from scratch. You know, and obviously with the foreign exchange, that is something that I've always been very proud of. Is that we kind of all came up from nowhere together versus, you know, we didn't really have any sort of really big sort of names involved necessarily. We kind of all came, you know, up together. And I think a lot of those groups had sort of the same sort of ascension. And I guess that's one of the reasons they really appeal to me. Massive Attack is it's a huge influence on me, both production wise as well as just how to make choices about, you know, I think building up songs and be effective in how you build up songs. So yeah, man, Portishead definitely another group that I really admire. Um, for a while, I think they were just really really incredible in terms of, again, sort of the right sound for the right time. Hard to explain because you don't really know until after the fact, but that's
Right.
like that was a sound where it was like it seemed like it was perfect for that moment. And as such, like I don't know, like I haven't listened to a Portishead record in a minute. I don't know if it's held up, but it was so incredibly urgent at the time that it felt like it was sort of meant to be almost.
hmm And you can tell your flavor, like when you did your EP Never Stand Still. You a lot of
Mm-hmm.
that influence was definitely in there. Like I love You Break It, You Buy It. Like how
Oh,
you
right,
start
right,
that
right,
off. What?
right.
Oh, that's what I got with, we gonna get into that, no more waiting. But it's just like, yo, like that era was so, a lot of people don't talk about that era and don't understand, like you said, the late 80s going into that 90s is very important to music, period. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that the UK soul and British soul is very important to speak on because it's the reason why, it's a big reason because of the shift. It's always shifts that happen. You know what I mean? And I think people kind of miss that part of the shift, that we got to kind of where we at with more of hip hop and breakbeats, to be honest, to be commercial and be mainstream. So it's just like, and I love the fact that, again, Nicolay, you do that with your production with FE, and you keep, you know what I mean? Like you can tell the influence is there. That's why I was like, when I asked you, I was like, he gonna say UK, so I know it. I was like,
All
nah.
right. I hope you
I was
put
like,
some
I
money on
know
that.
it. I was like, I know it, because I was like, it gotta be. So when I asked, I was like, Elise, you saw what he said? She was like, yeah, I saw it. I was like, yeah, I saw it. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
so
man.
we good. You know what I
I
mean?
need to
Like
get
this is.
Jal. I need to get Jal to pick my lotto numbers or something.
Well, that's why. I mean, you know, I wanted to be honest, and like I did say, like it wasn't really one specific song, but one
Right.
thing that I really wanted to do for No More Waiting is like there's a massive reverb in there, like, and it's on a lot of the instruments and on the voice, and it's a lot of reverb, and that was one of the things that I really sort of took away from a lot of those like late 80s, early 90s productions. Like they're relatively sparse.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of space and a lot of reverb in them. And I really wanted to experiment a little bit with seeing how far I could go with it. And so I really pushed it over the edge with this one. I was like, well, I really want, like, normally I'm super careful and I'm everything in its right place, and you know, every hi-hat is where it needs to be. And for this one, I deliberately, also because of the feel of the song, really kind of pushed it further than I would normally have. And when I heard the master for the first time, I was like, oh wow, that's a lot of reverb. That's a lot of reverb. And then but then all of a sudden it became like sort of I think sort of tied it back to a lot of those records and realized like that's kind of the bed that a lot of those records build under the voice. um that usually has that, like, it's a sparse production, but there's always just a lot of warmth from that reverb just sort of carrying everything. And there's a couple of more tricks in there that, like, I think really sort of harken back to that sound. But when you put the record on, like, you'll hear the reverb. It's like in there, and it makes it sort of more, I think, urgent. It makes it really just sort of something that grabs you, because you can't escape it.
Right. Right. Right.
I was gonna say it's more of a like the uh but that's not it you use the word sparse, but like it's like a simplicity and a complexity at the same time. But
Mm.
you could kind of hone in on everything so you're not like missing anything. I just find a beauty in that, you know.
I like
Hmm.
that you say that. I think that that's a big compliment because like I don't want things to seem complicated or complex,
Right.
or labored over more so. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because like that's in the past I've done things where it's like, okay, now I've built this incredible Mona Lisa, to 16th Chapel, you know, Jenga tower or whatnot, you know, of stuff, and it's just I'm doing every, you know, and it just is too, you know, it's too much, you know, and I think that I've learned over time that like that you have to be accessible in what you do. I mean, this is all within reason, but I've learned this for myself is that you have to provide the listener with access into the music, and that doesn't mean you can't challenge them, but you're gonna have to first sort of get them to care first and foremost. So I think the form that I've sort of landed on in terms of music over the years is something that is certainly not complicated in terms of musically. There's not anything there that anybody else can do. It's got the same 7 8 14 notes, whatever, on the piano, and people have the same plugins as I do. So, but there's a complexity in how the simplicity is presented, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so it's something that should hear as totally effortless and relatively uncomplicated, but in fact is behind the scenes kind of a man behind the curtain where, you know,
Hmm.
stuff like it's like a beautiful tapestry. The backside of it looks crazy to make sure that the front side looks really pretty. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I picture my music, is like the front is really pretty and the backside is crazy and jumbled and glue and spit and, you know, MacGyver. But I'd always wanted to seem to you as though it's just a walk in the park. You know what I mean? Because I want it to be effortless to whatever degree.
Oh, well, you what we get into this record because you did what you need to do on this record, nigga. Let me
Ha!
tell you something. No more waiting. I
No
played
more.
it and I lied to you not because I remember when we did the show, you was like you was working on something, you couldn't tell us what it was, and you was just like, I'm working on this joint. I can't tell y'all what it was. So then when it came out, yo, I listened to that joint 12 times straight. I lied to you not.
Wow.
I love this record. Are you like I called the lease? I was like, Elise, I love this record. Like, I don't know what Nicolay
That
was
means so
doing.
much to me.
And the baby, I was in there, and man, and Nicolay, you know I get down at the concerts. So I was going in my house for real, for real. Cause this joint knocks, and it was just like that's why I knew it was kind of UK soul that you might have been influenced by. Because for me, when I heard it, I was like, I got a little bit of loose ends gonna make you mine, the
Mhm.
airiness of it. And I was
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
ooh, it has an
Yeah.
airiness to it. And I was like, ooh, okay, Nicolette. And then when you said Soul to Soul, I said it reminded me of Happiness off the debut.
Mm.
And I was like, ooh, I was like, how he put them two together to make this? I was like, yo, this joint is dope, but it still had the Nicolay flair, like that you know that I love that your production gives. So it gave me that, and that's why I said it reminded me of the Never Stand Still EP. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I was like,
Mm.
oh, Nicolay is here. This is where he is. I was like, well, when I want a whole album of this. Cause I was like, I want a whole album of this record, like because then with the I guess with the because I'm listening to it on Spotify, and when I heard it, it's like you got separate versions of it, and then you got
Mhm.
without JJ in it, and it's just like I was like, oh my god, like this is bliss to me. Like I was just like, because again, like me doing current R&B bangers, and I talk about songs and things like that. Like Elise will tell you, I really haven't really been inspired by too much of anything. So I've been because Elise been like, hello, when are we doing current R&B bangers? Like she keep throwing it at me, and I'm like, since I ain't had it. But Nicolay, when I heard this joint, it inspired the hell out of me. I was like, I need to get back in front of the camera and
That's
dance
amazing.
again because this record did it for me. I love it. I love it. So, what was your
That's
creative
amazing.
mind for this?
Oh,
Like, where was you at? Like, I need to know the details. I'm sorry.
Well, I really appreciate that. I think that I was really excited with it, but I'll start at the beginning. Like it really was I really got to credit my man Creative Theory with sort of the genesis of the track. Like he's the main vocalist on the track and he wrote the song and they're his words and like the thing that really about Creative Theory that I've said before is that he is a relatively recent collaborator of mine that I've met a couple of years ago, and I've did a song with him on my Lights in the Sky EP, which is called
Yes, you
Sooner
did
or
sooner or
Later.
later. Yep.
Yeah. And what I really loved about him at that moment was that he just took that track and did something that I had never really imagined he would do. He's somebody that he processes his voice a lot. He cuts his stuff up, he pitches himself up and down. Like in that sense, he again sort of reminds me of a George Clinton in a way, in which he approaches his vocal arrangements because he'll do a lot of different voices himself and a lot of different intonations, and he's just an incredibly gifted individual who thinks about music in a way that I've never seen anybody think about it. And so I knew that when we first worked together, I was like, this is a cat that I'm on the lookout for. And he's from Fayetteville. He's from NC. But he was overseas at the time. He was actually overseas doing security contract work in a very dangerous place of the world, different part of the world. So this cat would write these songs in like a bunker essentially and record them on a laptop while there were mortars and shells flying around and stuff like that. And it really sort of like put like outside of the fact that he was musically incredibly gifted, this man was clearly so determined to still do something in a situation where most people would give up that it really sort of made me just really respect his work ethic. A lot of artists here will be like, well, I don't have the latest plug-in, or I need a new MacBook, or I need a, XYZ. So I'm, just a lot of excuses to not get done what they could get done. And here's a cat who's in the desert getting shot at, and he's like singing into a laptop and just doing the craziest dope shit that you can imagine. And so like that to me
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, this is like almost sort of this is almost like a meant to be situation. And when I so we started working and we've got a couple of tracks that will all come up on the album that I'm working on. But like this particular track was like a later stage, like he's excited about it. And
yes, I love it.
that
I
makes me
love it.
that makes
I
me
give him
excited.
hell, but I actually love it.
Right.
Yeah.
But nah, that's really great. But so like this track came up, like he was like, man, one day he was like, man, I got this song, man, and I just I don't know what do you hear? What do you think of it? And it really was interesting because he sent me this song and like he was like, man, I've just gone through a like just meant like a couple of years ago, the painful divorce,
Right.
and this is kind of what I did to process my way through it. Like I turned to music to process my way through it, and this is what I wrote. And the interesting thing was that I had gone through a divorce not too long ago. So I was already like, okay, this could be either really interesting or this could be really bad. Like, cause divorces
Right.
go all over the map. And then I heard it, I was like, wow, this is a really great, I felt it was a great, refreshing way of wording the situation, how it is from the perspective of somebody who has tried like their best to whatever degree from their perspective. But it just didn't work out. But there's a there's the overall feel of being on the other side of it and being ready to move on. That's kind of what I heard. Like being at that point after a breakup where you realize that it's time to let shit be and move towards the light, quote unquote, and that's what I really took from it. And the funny thing was like I really wanted to do more personal shit for my album, in the sense that I was like, I normally am a producer, so I don't write a lot of the lyrics. So like I normally don't really have a direct influence on what is being said per se, unless there is in the foreign exchange there's some notable examples where I came up with some words, but normally it's primarily the vocalist, But for my
Right.
upcoming album, I just wanted to be more personally involved with what some of the subject matter was. And from that perspective, this felt like a kind of a breakthrough of like, wow, if we put this together with this type of message, that's probably more personal than record. You know what I mean? Like in all reality, and while there are not my words, and while it's not written from my perspective, I still recognize enough in it that I think other people would too if they've been through the same situation. So we were like, essentially, let's make the breakup anthem that says it's okay to let go. You know what I mean? And we needed to hear it, and we were sure that other people needed to hear it too. And that was interesting when the record came out, which I'll fast forward in a little bit. But all these people were like, "Yo, I just went through yada yada yada," and like I needed, you instantly get. It kind of reminded me of Authenticity when that came out, because there were some people going through it, and they that
Amen,
right,
me.
right, right, that record really sort of, I think had to hit you at the right time. If you were like happily in love, that may not have been the right moment. But if the minute the shit went down the hill, you knew that Authenticity record was talking about some shit,
Oh yeah.
and I think No More Waiting reminds me of that a little bit, that it's like, it's dealing with some real shit, but it's doing it in a way that I think is uplifting, and not necessarily even choosing sides. You know what I mean? Like it's not about, oh, who was wrong, who was right, who did what. It's more about, that it's time, and the No More Waiting becomes very literal at that moment of like, it became sort of like a battle cry for us, too, that it's just like no more waiting. And so then it became like, well, if it's no more waiting, then I shouldn't wait to put the song out. So that's essentially
All right.
what happened, which is actually Fonte who told me that. It was interesting. I finished the song and I sent it to Fonte, and like he really really into it. And like when that sort of tells you like, okay, it might have something here. And he was like, man, you should really kind of try to just push this out as quick as you can, even if you're not really sure about how to take it from there. Like I think that should be out. And so that I hadn't really thought of it that way. I just thought I was going to do a whole album and wait till I was done, and then figure out like, oh, this could be a single. So right now I'm actually kind of doing the exact opposite thing. I'm going into the album by way of singles. So like No More Waiting is on the album. We know that because it's out. And from here on out, I'm working my way towards the finish line by way of more singles that I'll put out consecutively. But like he urged me to put it out ASAP. So I think I was done with it in April and I put it out in May. It was literally the fastest that I've ever. It was the hottest of the press that I've ever done a work of music. And normally it can be anywhere from a few months to years, that you sit on something. But this was like done. I think the final mix was the beginning of May, and by the end of May we had the master. So it was a very exciting process in all facets. And so yeah, going back, long story short, or a long story even longer in all reality, uh, creative theory is the main sort of seed, the main instigator of this concept, and so credit should go definitely to him in terms of just being an incredibly gifted collaborator who in turn sort of inspired me to be at my best, which the greatest collaborations is when you get inspired to be at your best, and so that hats off to creative theory. And then JJ is a singer from Atlanta with for a while now, and I'm in the process of actually producing an entire album on him. He came in and he helped me flesh out the coda which is the whole "Love Ain't Enough" and "No More" and that whole part. Because we really wanted to leave people, so it's that sort of record where that last minute is the amen corner, the choir, the group sort of sing, you know what I mean? And so he came in and
Hmm.
he executed that, really did an amazing job. I really like how his vocals kind of stand out. They're a little bit more Michael Jackson-y, if you will, versus sort of Rich's vocals. So they got a nice sort of interplay together. And I think the vocals on the track are amazing. Like I've been blessed to work with a number of incredible people over the years, like probably the top of the line in R&B vocals, period. And so it's really exciting for us now. Like I've been doing this now for 20 years, that we're now sort of tapping into the second generation of FE collaborators who came up basically by going to see concerts of ours. Like basically, like JJ is a guy who started seeing shows of ours when he was like 14, 15,
Wow.
and just copped just everything during those shows. And so um, Durand is another one who, Durand Bernard, who used to be at our shows in Cleveland and would always just soak everything up. And so it's really gratifying for me that now we have a second generation kind of collaborators who are literally the next generation in the sense that they are now in their 20s, you know what I mean, when we were in our
Hmm.
20s then. So that feels like a beautiful sort of passing of the torch, or I guess widening of the tent, if you will. So like I'm super excited about that element too, that there's young people that sort of will carry the torch, but do it in a fresh way that we couldn't do by our old selves. You know what I mean? So it's very exciting to keep things fresh in that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna backtrack for a second. I had a thought, kind of like a
Mhm.
eureka moment. You know, people always say like a lot of time artists create because they're going through pain or but I don't think it's the pain per se. It's about, and No More Way makes me think that it's about transition. So
Mhm.
whether that's a transition for you were happy and then you were fed up and then you broke up and then, or if it's, I was kind of in this, but I'm ready to do something else. I'm ready to find, I'm tired of waiting. So like I
Yeah.
find my most creative during transition, not necessarily pain. And this song like really reflects that.
I like that. Yeah, I think I would agree. I think and I thought about, even the album that I'm trying to make, and it's not like I'm even trying to make a breakup album. Like it's not going to be Here My Dear, where it's just the whole thing is getting relitigated, like.
Yes.
And I mean, I think it's one of my favorite albums of all time, Here My
Me too.
Dear.
Oh yeah, we talked about
It's
that thing on the
probably the
show.
best.
We
Yeah, I
love
think it's probably the best breakup album ever. Like because it has
Hands down.
everything, the beginning, it has the anger, it has,
everything.
the question of like, hey, when did we stop loving each other? Which is just when you come out of a long relationship, that's one of the first questions that comes to mind is like, when did I stop liking you? You know what I mean? What and it's hard to pinpoint. But yeah, I mean, we process that through music. You know what I mean? And I've processed my experience over the last year through music, and not all of it is going to be heavy, like you said, or painful, or even somber. Not at all. It can also be that realization of like that it's behind you. That brighter days are ahead of you. Transition, I think, is a really good word for it because it's in flux. You know what I mean? And so the record that I'm working on is going to be for me kind of like taking stock of 20 years of making music. So one thing that I wanted to do was involve a lot of people who over the years have been very important to me, and reach out to them and see what's going on and see what if that flame's still burning on their end. You know what I mean? And I think the record for me is going to be kind of a bookend in that way, where some of my earlier records, in '06, like here and stuff like that, when I first came
Oh
to the
yeah.
United States. Like I
Hmm.
think this is kind of the bookend to that period where I'm sort of taking stock of everything that I've learned and all the people that have come on my way, both in terms of way back when, but also like with some of these new guys. So that makes sort of the creative process much more purposeful. I feel like it's really great. Like when you have like a purpose like that, it can be very gratifying. Like so, I've been down my own rabbit hole for the last like year and a half or so in terms of just purely just thinking out, concepts and working with people, and rekindling some flames with some people that I hadn't talked to in a long time. Outside of the music, like I just wanted to see how they were doing more than anything, but that's kind of what this coming era is going to be like, and what the album will represent is kind of 20 years of actually. Yeah, so be warned. It's 20 years of me. It's a lot. It's a long time, but it's only 12 songs. Don't worry.
You
I
know,
think it's
Nicolay,
12. It
you
might be
actually
14
sound
songs though.
like you kind of remind me of actually my favorite production team, Holla Doja Holland, when they said the same thing that you said about like how you did with No More Waiting. You said it's not a break up. The lyrics are like getting over something, but we want to put a fast beat to it to make you dance the pain away. And that's
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
think about with a lot of those Motown joints that they did back then. A lot of them lyrics was very sad. To be
Oh yeah.
honest,
Phil-
it was like get
Phil-
over.
There's a time for the broken hearted. They're all
Philly,
right.
Philly too.
Yeah, I mean, it was really,
Think
really,
about
really.
think about all the Harry Melvin Blue Notes stuff. That stuff was
Yes,
Yeah, they're
sad,
smiling, but they're
but you
smiling through
could
the
get it.
tears because they're talking about some real sad shit. Yeah, I mean,
What
right.
and I
what I
mean, I
tell you
think,
before, Jr. Just dancing and crying, dancing and crying,
Yeah,
dancing and
yeah,
crying.
right. I think it is
yeah.
it,
And for me,
but I think it is a
that's why.
classic way of processing your emotions is through music and through dancing and singing, and I think that
Yeah,
like one thing that I wanted to make sure, like like I didn't want it to be a vitriolic record, because
right.
those also exist. Like you have those breakup records that are straight up just like, and I mean there's a place for those, but that wasn't my experience. And
Yes.
so while I didn't write the words personally, I just wanted to make sure that it was universal to a point where I wasn't um, going down lanes where I didn't want to go down. So I think it's so story, even the words are, but it's just the admission that sometimes it's better to admit that you've tried and failed than to just keep pushing on. I think that's what no more waiting is. And I think you can transpose that on any area of life where you are sort of facing a hurdle or a
Yeah.
mountain, or, like sometimes already what you have to do, but you're just, I'm a procrastinator. So no more waiting for me is also like, I really should have it on the wall here somewhere, like no more waiting, because it's also for me a reminder of like, why wait to do tomorrow what you could do today? Which is, as a procrastinator, I wait to do anything for as long as I can. So I mean, I think it's also a way for me to sort of learn more about myself and learn the sides about myself that I would want to change. You know what I mean? So in terms of the procrastinating, I think that like no more waiting is also definitely a mantra for myself, a reminder for myself, to always keep pushing. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so it's way beyond a breakup song at this point, even though that's kind of the initial first
The
way that
foundation.
it will hit you. Yeah, but it is much more than that. It's a little bit of empowerment in there, but it's also just a jam. It's if you just don't even listen to a single word, it is a jam, and it is it's a danceable record. It's kind of meant to be a danceable record, and it's meant to really kind of leave you feeling good, not like bad at all,
Yes.
but leave
Yes.
you like maybe bittersweet, but with an eye on like, look, like there is something over there, so that I think and from judging from the reactions, I think that worked out, that a lot of people, again, it has to hit you in the right moment, but when it does, these are the type of songs that I think will really kind of, because you needed to hear that at that moment, you know.
Mhm. With me too, though, like you said, no more waiting. I think it inspired me to get back into doing this. I know Elise is very happy with that because I have not done R&B bangers in like months,
You've
and
been
that's why I
waiting.
was.
Right.
Yes, that's why it was like this was a word for me. It was like no more waiting. You got what you need, and this is a summer banger. So I literally play this song all every day going to work. So it's so like you said, the foundation of it all could be sad in a way, but it also has some empowerment in there. Like go for yours.
Motivation.
Don't keep waiting on to do something, and you need to just do it. You know what I mean? I think I needed that for me to get back into doing this stuff because again,
I
it's like
love
you
it,
can
man.
get uninspired for real. Like, and I
Yeah.
wasn't, and I think after a while, at least be like, look, I'm not gonna keep telling you when, where, and how. I'm done. So I'm just gonna be quiet and just be quiet. And then finally, I think at least when I hit her and I was like, sis, I love this joint. And I was like, I think I'm ready to do it again. And she was like, well, finally.
And
So yes, I had to tell you, Nicolay, for this record, I thank you for this because it inspired me to get back to do what I was doing. So
I love
and,
it.
and yeah, and the concept, well, I get for the concept of no more waiting. It's not just about jumping out of things; it's about jumping into things as well.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it could go
Oh yeah.
either
that's
way,
true.
or
No,
Yes.
or
it's a
both
it's
things
a
can be true, and it could be that at the same time. So
they
Mm-hmm.
really can be. It's like it's an end, but it's also a beginning. You know, it's a door that closes and another door opens, you know, because it's the yin and yang of it. There has to be that balance, you know. So I don't, even it doesn't really matter what you believe in, but just even mathematically speaking,
both
gone
sides of the
through a shit
equation
period of
got to.
time, there's going to have to be some sunshine at some point. It just balances it out, you know. So I
Right.
think, yeah. So it was very, again, important for us to not make a record that really leaves you like feeling shitty. Like, which, I mean, there's a place for records like that too, but that wasn't really. We were trying to do to get something together that you could feel some sort of empowerment from, whether it's on a practical level, which I really love hearing that
Right.
because, like I said, like for me, it had sort of the same message of like, why would you wait? You know, and even putting it out right now versus waiting until the album is done, it felt so right to just not wait that it became this whole sort of snowball effect of like it started having much more of a meaning with every
Right.
day that passed, you know. So that was really, really amazing because not every song has that, you know. Sometimes a song is just a great song, but this sort of took on a little, like I said, a little bit of the anthem role, a mantra, if you will. So that's one of the reasons I'm very proud of it.
But
As you
y'all
can
said
tell.
look,
Right.
back in authenticity, y'all said don't wait.
Right, don't wait. Right.
Like
And the other
you've been
day
saying it, you know?
I made it play on Facebook. I was like, don't wait. Listen to No More Waiting. And unfortunately, like not a lot of people uh caught on to it, but I think it in a way it is a sort of re-approaching of that very same concept, you know, of don't wait. Um, even though that was from a perspective of like in front of it, you know, like in terms of
Yeah,
if someone loves you back, don't get in the way,
don't get
you
it
know,
away.
like it
Right.
I mean it
Right.
I think it's the same sort of sentiment that in life you have to grab at what the situation is, whether it's a great situation
Yes.
or whether it's a sticky situation. The only way you can do is to move forward, you know. So I think our
Get out
music
your own way.
I think our music historically has a lot of that sort of has a lot of like it's funny I sometimes refer to it as gospel music, not literally because there's not really literally, but it has that sort of layer of like empowerment,
It does. Yep.
philosophical, sort of like I think especially like Fonte, like the way he writes his songs, like there's a gospel element to it in terms of just strictly how to deal with life, I suppose, you know what I mean, that
Yeah.
kind of does harken back to some of the great Motown writers, like we were talking about before, because they too were sort of, giving you like life lessons in a way. You know, when they write some about these sort of like Backstabbers by the OJs, it comes to mind. I don't know why, but that's,
No, that hurt.
like I think
Gambling Huff, yes, God,
right. I think a
yes.
lot of those songs are sort of like all, you know, songs that more deal with like what can happen in life and how to potentially deal with it or how to make it
Right.
less hard or and I think those are songs that turn out to be, I think, timeless songs because like everybody's seen hard times, right? At some point in their lives.
That's right.
Like everything's coming to me later. I just thought of another song that No More Waiting puts me in the mind of. And it puts me in the mind of the re-edit of A Day Like Today
Mm-hmm.
from Flying.
I could
Oh,
see that. I could see
Like
that.
I
the
can
Yeah, I
see
mean,
message,
that.
a lot of the come like how it comes in reminds me of how No More Waiting comes in. So like that just
Mm.
isolated. Yeah.
I know at this point. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that I do like to take my time. I think two of those tracks really show that I like to take my time in terms of building stuff up. And I think it's also a sort of clear demonstration that we are not radio artists because like we'll have the drums for like a good little bit and then the bass come in and then so by the time that first vocal come in, it might be 2 minutes into the record. And I think that's on a day like today, and it is another one where it kind of goes back and forth for a good long while before it even goes
Yes. A
to the
long like a
first
yeah, like
verse.
almost 2 minutes. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think I mean it's not that is not appropriate every time, but when I do get the chance, so what if it is another one that comes to mind that has this really,
Mhm.
really long build up that by the time it really starts moving, you're like, man, it's like 2 minutes in, like literally, and we haven't really. That was just the intro, and I think I've
I
always
love it.
liked to do that, but only if it was worth every second. Like if it wasn't like just because I'm just want to do like long like jams, but because
Mhm.
every second, because it can't be any shorter than it is. Like we need all
Right.
those 7 minutes of the on a day like today edited. Like we try to cut it down and it's not the same. And it was the same with No More Waiting. Like we could do maybe a single edit that comes in right at the vocal and then we listen to it and it's like, man, while that would be practical on the radio, like for one, nobody's gonna play this on the radio because it's like, well, let me put it this way: not nobody will play this on commercial radio where it matters how long your song is. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
like the
Right.
people that
Right.
play
Right.
our stuff, they already know. Like we're already on that other stuff. So I don't have
Mhm.
to really be worried about a single length when that's not really what I'm targeting. So more and more over time, we've just decided again and again. By Carmen was another one where I just did a version that was like 6 minutes. And I was like, I kind of sort of half imagined like the last 2 minutes, we're gonna just cut that shit off. Like we're gonna just, I just had my fun. I just did it for fun. I just had my way with it. And everybody was like, nah,
Yeah.
we gotta do the whole thing, man. Like we gotta do, even Fonte was like, nah, we're gonna have to do the whole joint. And it was another example of like, I think a song that could potentially be shorter, but felt so right in its full arrangement that it earned its keep. And I think if I look back, some of my favorites are like long songs like that where it's just a straight up build up and then there's got a switch in it at the end and it just goes off to the deep end. And so I've done a few of those, and I think coming back to No More Waiting, that's why I did some of the remixes because I wanted it to be something that didn't really
Hmm.
end, quote unquote. Like I felt like if I just have the song, it's going to be a little bit lame because I'm just like, here's the song. And while that's a great song, I just would have felt a little bit like that didn't fully give me the Santa Claus feeling I was after. So I did the other versions to make something that could stand on its own while it's going to be part of an album. Like I wanted this to be something that you could listen to as its own sort of self-contained thing. And then people started sort of gravitating towards some of the different versions, Like some people really dug the house mix and played that like played that one specifically on some radio stations. And so I was like, if I can listen, if I can do the same song 4 times in a row, then I probably got a future in this. And that seems to be working out. That seems to be working out. But it's, I mean, it's essentially just 4 versions of the same track, but just to give people a little bit
Yeah.
more than just a single. So, and also to come back to the 12 inches, like I wanted to do the 12-inch, like I wanted to do what I remembered from getting a great 12-inch, with like normally I had like a great extended version or a remix. And so I was like, well, we got No More Waiting is the A side. We need to have we really need to have a couple of different versions to fill out like a 12-inch, what a 12-inch would be in the late 80s.
Mhm.
You know, so even that was kind of a little bit of a nod towards that.
Mm.
Wow, this is dope.
I
Right.
look, I got to tell
That
Nicolay I was
was
inspired
very
by the
profound,
record.
or that was just very boring.
No, no, no.
Well, like I said, I'm wearing these cans, so you know I'm a nerd. You can't blame me now, halfway into the episode.
No,
There's
well,
no
thank
money.
God
There's
I
no
ain't.
money back, guys. There's no money back. Okay. There's no
Thank
reimbursement.
God I. Well, Nicolay, I got mine over there. They mixed, so I got a big one too. I'm a nerd, so don't feel bad.
I do. They
At
make me
all.
feel like a little nerd, but I mean, it also means I take my sound seriously. So
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yes. So we want everybody to check out No More Waiting and keep your
yes,
ears and
Everybody.
eyes. Well, that was very aggressive. I liked it.
It
Um,
sure was.
like definitely check it out. Keep your eyes and ears open for subsequent things that are gonna be coming because I can't wait. And I mean, ain't no more. I can't
yeah,
wait. There's no
we
more
got a
waiting.
single lined up. I think I can reveal that I got another single lined up, and I don't know exactly when it will come out, but I will say it's cancer season, and what better time than cancer season? But I'm not quite sure yet how it will all pan out. But we got more stuff lined up, kind of going towards the album. Um, no More Waiting is the main dish right now, though. So definitely go check that out if you haven't yet. And don't wait. Like No More Waiting. The song already tells you what to do, and you're
He,
still
he,
waiting. So I don't know
he
what more
told you
can we
what
tell you.
his
Go
brother
wait.
told you what to do, and you still ain't doing it.
It's
Why?
it's
God,
out
Why?
everywhere. It's out on your favorite uh platform of choice, right? So
yeah.
well, it's funny because like we had a long conversation, me and my folks. We had a long conversation the other day about being an artist in 2023, sort of being arrogant enough to be an artist in 2023 where you drop a song realizing that, can I curse on this podcast? Is that okay? It should be
Yeah.
okay, right? Well, I was
Yeah.
just going to say, like, just the audacity of releasing new music when motherfuckers have the complete history of recorded music in their back pocket.
Right.
You have to be really, you have to be a little bit of a special person to still want to put your own stuff up against that. It's really, I think, interesting how I think with the advance of streaming, both in music and TV and movies, there's like as humans, we have access to everything. I can dial up whatever. I can walk into my den and dial up any movie ever made, more than likely within a minute, and any album ever recorded. And to be honest with you, it makes everything seem uninteresting right now to me. Like it's just so strange how we've reached this point of saturation where the evolution has brought us to a point where we have everything and yet it means nothing to us. So I hope that we go backwards. With this sounds counterintuitive, but that we kind of can find our way back to a point in time when not not having everything was actually more interesting. Like having to work for something, or having to crave something and never get it. But this whole situation of us just having everything, man, like that wasn't. I don't think our human brains were wired to withstand that. So, like, I was just joking how crazy you must be to want to add another song to the 5 million that are already right now out on Spotify. But it's I personally don't have any other talents, so I this is what I'm gonna have to do. But no, all jokes aside, it makes it feel kind of like a brave new world right now, that if you release music, like you have to have a strong belief in what you do, because there's a
Yeah,
lot of trees falling in this forest right now. And it's not something that I ever get preachy about, but I do hope, and I do think that as humans we need to be more discerning about what we want access to, and what is realistic for us to have for like $10 a month, because like these writers are striking for a good reason. I think creatives are getting squeezed like right now, just every of them, whether it's musicians or writers or actors, and I think we all starting to realize that we're all kind of feeding the big machines, which are the Netflix and the Spotify's of the world, which are not TV or music companies, but they're tech. As my good friend Fonte always says, like, they're tech companies. They don't, Spotify doesn't really care about music. It sounds a little bit crazy, but it's a fact that it's a tech company. So I think the streaming model, as much as I've always been a fan, I'm a big streamer myself. I love the accessibility that it affords our work, especially overseas. Like somebody who's in Japan can dial up a foreign. The other day, I met somebody. It's a really, really cool story. I met somebody. I was just out on a little trip. I met somebody. We were just shooting the shit, had a drink or two. At some point, we get to talking about what I do. And all you have to do is whip out Spotify and be like, here you go. See for yourself. That is a very cool experience,
right.
and for your music to be available instantly to so many people is such a huge advantage. But I think we've just reached the point of saturation, man. And I think that maybe we'll see a movement, a trend, sort of more towards limiting certain things instead of making everything. Those big, huge streaming. Now you've got Max and Discography Plus, and they got, it's too much. I think it's too much stimulation for any human. So music is understandably going to be sort of like down the pyramid. When I was growing up, we on Friday nights we would listen to albums. Like we would sit down. Like this is going to be hard for kids to understand, but like we would sit down and listen to music, and it wasn't like no TV on or game. It was like the music was the activity, and like that is interesting to me. Like, and we did that because it was like, well, I got the new XYZ. It was still sort of limited to those
Right.
days. And I would hope that people at some point learn. Like, I hope that kids today at some point like feel that sensation of like what that is like when music becomes a part of your life in a way that it sort of really kind of becomes part of your DNA. I don't think you can have that happen when you have everything under the sun. So that's just my brief little detour about what it means to release music in 2023. It's like shooting a I sometimes it's like shooting a rocket into space, man, and you just hope, you just
It
hope
is.
somebody listens, because there's just
I
so much
agree.
out there, you know.
It is.
We
It
appreciate
is.
you sharing that actually, because we be
Yes.
like to hear it from the artist's perspective.
Well, like I
Hmm.
said,
and
you
not
got to
and
be
not just me and JR jaw jacking.
Right.
right, right. Well, the thing is, like, I'm super stubborn. Like, I'll do this. Like, a you can put a dump truck in front of me. Like, I'll find my way around it. So I'm so stubborn that I'll find my way through it. But for people that have a little bit more of a trepidation with how to present themselves in 2023, like a new artist coming up right now, like man, it's a massacre. I wouldn't really know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
how to approach that. And so it's interesting. Like I think social media has lost a certain effectiveness in terms of communicating with people. Obviously, when you started seeing things like ads and stuff like that, it no longer was super organic. And I can now tweet that I have my album out, but you know, like at the end of the day, it doesn't really cut through the same way as it did 20 years ago. You know, and that's normal because like things change. I'm definitely not one of those people that complains about it in the sense that um I wish to turn back the time, but I wish that um certain music appreciation would come back, that I think ultimately would give people a more fulfilled life if they didn't have all notes ever recorded by mankind, but instead, you know, just the ones that they truly love. You know what I mean?
right,
Like I think that'd
right.
be a great start. You know, it's the same with
Yeah,
TV shows. Do you have to have every TV show, or would it be enough to just get the ones you love? You know what I'm saying? I think the more and more I go, the more I realize like I think it's okay if it's just the really really good ones, you know, like and I think it goes for
yeah,
music and books and movies and any kind of art that you appreciate. It's like what if you just limit it to just the stuff that you really truly love? Because right now I'll be, you know, when I come out of the studio sometimes I'll throw on Netflix and I'm like just mindlessly, and nothing seems appealing to me. Like I know,
nothing.
like it might be some really great shows in there, but it all seems like I don't even know, you know. And
It's
it's just,
overwhelming. It's
yeah, it's
overwhelming.
just overwhelming. It's just you get blasé from just it's too much. You know, you'll never be able to watch all of it. Like the damn true crime section alone will take you 100 years. You know what I mean? To it really is overwhelming. It's like you said the other day. I was just mindlessly, it's like I can do this, I can do that, and as a result, none of it seems appealing to me right now. Where maybe I might like to, you know, like I remember back it would be on Friday night, and you would have to be home to watch it. Like if you know if you had other
Yeah.
plans, and I realized that's like
Oh
old
yeah,
school. How cool of it would it be if we went back to that, where it's just like, you know, you're gonna have to tune in Sunday night. I did that with Succession and it was fun. Like it's like, okay, instead of the whole binge watching, let's just wait a
Binge.
week. Let's just be patient and wait
yeah.
a week till our new episode. And that seemed like that was a lot of
Like
fun.
I was.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
old fashioned guys.
Well,
But I mean it's, you know, it's all
but you
I
want
I I mean it's all, you know what? It's all like based on, like I think like the way that I love music, like I would wish for people to have that in their lives. You know what I mean?
Me
Like it's really
too.
what it is. Like
Oh,
because it has done so much for me that I wish that, like, especially that sensation of when I was really sort of growing up and getting into the peak of things, like seeking out
right.
records and I truly wish for people to have that in their lives, man. And I'm sometimes worried that younger people don't really get that opportunity right now. But that's something that I wish for everybody to have, that love of music, because I know that in times of that you need it, it does sustain you. You know,
Yeah.
I know that for myself, that when I've needed it in my life, it was always there for me. And even when I thought I didn't need it, it was still there because it knew I
That
to like,
needed
hey,
part.
it.
you're like, hi, Nicolay. What's up, man?
No, but it was, you know, it's like the one main reason I've always been such a Prince fan is like he would always have that song that would make you go like, motherfucker, he's right. You know what I mean?
All
And
right.
like it's like that has always had a role, played a role in my life. Like I'd wish for anybody to have that type of feeling, man, because it's kind of almost like an elder in your family. You know what I mean? Like we were talking about those
Hmm.
life lessons in those songs. Like Stevie Wonder is another one. Like that, those are people that almost sort of help raise you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That part.
Shoot. You you got a microphone. You just drop the mic.
I just dropped
Yes,
the
he
mic. I
did.
did drop. I could
Yes, he
drop it.
did.
I did drop the
But
microphone.
you metaphorically you
I'm
dropped it.
metaphorically speaking. That's
Yes.
the beauty of this Zoom stuff is like I like I think that in a lot of ways like when this works out you forget that you're talking, right? Like you forget that you're doing this and you're just having a great
Yes.
conversation, and I
Right.
think at the best moments like Zoom can have that sort of feel of like we're just shooting the shit versus like we're just all trying to be at our best behavior. Right, prim and proper. Right, right.
I don't know how to do. I'm not aware
No,
of how
no.
to do that anymore.
Oh no.
I've been out of corporate world too long. I can't. I just can't do it no more.
I was never in the corporate world. I don't think they would ever want me in the corporate world. I mean, I think well, I'm lying. I was in the corporate world for a couple of years, and I was working for IBM. This was right before this was after I had decided that music wasn't for me, which was before I decided that it was for me at first.
Was.
But in the middle
Yes.
of that, in the middle of that was a couple of years of just extreme, just like me working for IBM in the corporate world, and just realizing that that was definitely not for me. But I think the what music even then did for me was realizing that I could be myself and like I didn't really have to sort of put any water in the wine, like in terms of what I liked, in terms of what I wanted to hear. I've always had a very eclectic taste, and even to a point where some people would
Yeah.
just clown me about it or they wouldn't really be able to hang. I remember I used to really, really be into Terrence Trent D'Arby. That was another one that I was really into. And
Oh, yes.
like,
Oh, that's my mother. Oh, God. She loved it.
and at least about to pull out
She
the
go.
record. Well,
Yeah,
that
you
was
see her, right? On the
I
low.
know
Here she go.
she's got doubles. It's at the T.
Hey, Babs.
Terrence, right? No, but
Yes.
that was another artist that I used to really, really like. And the kids in my class, like they was not really, they just were hating on Terrence. There he is. Yeah, man. Cats were hating and I think when I look back on my own music taste as a kid, it was either
Yeah.
always something that was like that was too left field or too extreme. Like I had a period of time where I really was into like Metallica and Slayer and stuff like that, and people felt like didn't understand what I liked about it. I just like for the obvious reason, it just packed the punch, and that's why I liked hip hop later down the road for similar
Right.
reasons. But I've always been able to listen to any type of music and uh, and find something in it that I can appreciate. So even if that's why I don't really believe in things being bad or good. you know I mean, I think they're good for somebody at some point. And I think No More Waiting is another song that if it hits you at the right moment, like it'd be nothing else like it, but it has to hit you at the right moment.
Right.
And I think our songs are like that.
Yes.
Terrence Van Darby, there he is. You do
So
have them all. You do have all the records. That is amazing. I mean, that's a good record too, man.
They do.
Yeah,
it
he's got a
is a
deep
good
collection.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't get a lot of. Well,
Oh yeah.
I think. Let me put it this way. The name change. I think is a nut. Like we've historically seen name changes being a little confusing for people. But
Yes.
he's up there for me. He's up there for me for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
DTD.
Well, we think we of course thank you, Nicolay.
Of
We
course.
just
This
and
Of course.
one thing about this show, like we just like to talk. We don't like it to be too rigid. It's just we just talk about some shit.
I
yes.
So
love
people
it.
be like, "Am I saying too much?" I'm like, "Go off." But yeah,
Yeah, you'll edit that. We'll edit that out. We'll edit that out. No, but I appreciate. I really enjoy this. I think what I like about you guys is that there's a genuine passion, behind what you do, and as somebody who puts a lot of passion into what I do, like I really that creates a bond. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
Yes.
that means that like we don't really even have to rehearse or nothing. It just
Mm-mm.
it just happens automatically. You guys are good people, man. So that has nothing to do with you bigging up my single, which of course is very nice. But I mean, but I mean that in general. You guys are really
Yeah.
good people, and like you talk about a lot of different things, and get a lot of different people on here, a lot of different perspectives, man. The episode about Leave It All Behind was great because like that was one that I got to watch sort of behind the scenes and just realizing what it meant to y'all. That was really amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
And
that
yeah,
was the
Vern
episode
wanted to do that
of all
episode
time.
so bad. Oh man. Vern wanted to do
Yeah.
that episode so bad.
And I mean, that was really, and a lot of great things were said about it that to me I really resonated with. And that album is 15 years old, believe it or not, this year. So um,
Yes, it
I'm sure
is.
we're gonna be talking about that some more at some point. But that was a great episode. I truly enjoyed that, and I'm especially because I wasn't a part of it. You know what I mean? It felt nice to sort of not influence the direction of the conversation.
It's right, real. That's real. That's real. That's real. Oh yes. Yeah, that was dope. That was dope.
That was really
Oh
good. That was really good. Is
yes.
Elise coming
Yes.
back? Elise is left us.
But yes, like we
Yes.
said, we definitely enjoy Nicolay, and we always appreciate our viewers who rock it with us every week, sometime few times a week. We love that. We think of everyone as family, R&B reps, cousins.
Mhm.
And yeah, we hope that y'all definitely check out Nicolay's new and older music. For sure, you will not be disappointed if you're not already on. We don't care nothing about late, long as you get there. And yeah, we will catch y'all on the next Catch That. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.